Hey, I hit start, actually. Sorry. No, it's all good. Either way. Hey, everyone. How you doing? We are live. And sorry, just a little confusion there.
That could have possibly been the quickest show, because if you hit the start button and I hit it at the same time and it hit stop,
I know that would have been great.
Like a 2-second show.
Would have been over like immediately. Oh,
that's the best show because we didn't hear Mike talk. There you go.
Oh, very fast, very fast. I know that getting the time here. Sorry about that. All right, let's do this.
Sure.
Yeah. So first, I want to touch base on the event. I went to see the Avengers. I'm not going to talk about any spoilers, of course. But I thought it was really. I thought it was just like, I'm going to say, just a little bit slow in the beginning. For me, it was a 3+ hour. It's like 3:15 or something like that. The movie.
Something like that.
Which is insane, and an insanely long movie. And I know they have, a lot of characters, a lot of things they have to tie up here. I mean, there's a ton of characters. Everybody was in it at some point or another, except for my buddy Anna Kendrick. So I want so badly to be Squirrel Girl. She wants to be Squirrel Girl, which is like, I don't know if if you remember Squirrel Girl from the comics, but she was like the most.
Yeah, give her my number.
Yeah, well, she was the most pop. She wants it. She's going for it. She's always pushing for it. I texted her and said, "Are you going to be Squirrel Girl?" And she's like, I don't know. I might be in. She wasn't in the movie, but Squirrel Girl's like this crazy dominant. She's a dominating force. But I love the. Did you see Captain Marvel? Did you see that movie?
I have not.
That's really a good movie. And
although I'm a big fan of Brie Larson for obvious reasons.
You got to see Captain Marvel then, because it's amazing.
Okay.
It's really worth seeing. It was an amazing movie. So I thought my kids absolutely loved it. My daughter thought it was the best movie she's seen, best Marvel movie she's ever seen. So
now Russ thought it was bad that everybody died in the first 5 minutes.
Nothing happened like that.
Just kidding. Sorry, Marvel. That you can blame me for losses of hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yes, of course, people will die as usual, but also with superheroes, if you write comic books, people come back to life. It's just, it never, superheroes never fully die. There you go.
Always come back in flashbacks.
Yes, absolutely. So let's get right into hockey after that. And here we go, because we may have to end a little bit on the early side. So feel free to jump into the chat room with us on YouTube and ask us maybe do some questions at the end here. Hello, Hockey World. It's Friday, April 26, 2019.
I'm a very tired Michael Agello.
Yeah. I'm Eklund, and I'm always tired. We're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday at this time to fill you in the comings and goings in the hockey world. We're going to try to do an early show this morning, but I was just too much going on here, and I was really, this was the first time I had slept in for a very long time. Thanks, Mike, for waking me up.
Oh, sorry.
It was awesome. Okay, so moving on. The games last night. As you probably saw that I picked Boston in 6 after you guys.
Yeah, I was informed of that. You were talking of Columbus all the time. Yeah. You sucked us in, and then you picked Boston.
It's a hard one, It's so hard to say, but at the end of the day, I just felt like Boston has, they just have that experience and they have that thing. I was just watching Sports Central at noon, and I was watching Berkey on there, and Berkey said that, I forget who it was that said Boston goes into every game feeling like they can actually win.
Elliot Friedman
said that, yeah. So and he's right about that. That is something that the Bruins have,
Well, Elliot Friedman is right, but I think his opinion is colored by the fact that every time he sees Boston play, it's against Toronto, and that's the reason why. And I'm not taking anything away from Boston, but I think Russ and I said this yesterday, was that the fact that Boston would have to win this game coming off the 7-game series, and with rust with Columbus after sitting for over a week. And you could see that. I think the shots were like 37-21.
Yeah.
But around the middle of the second period, Columbus started to not take over, but I think be the equal of the Bruins, and they took the 2-1 lead. And that was a nice goal by Coyle to tie it, and then really great feed on the game-winning goal, and then the overtime goal to win it. So, I'm not taking any away from Boston. I think Boston's a great team. I just think that the sort of energy level and the physicality of Columbus in the end will best the Bruins. But And you could see that at points.
Yeah.
You saw them pushing the Bruins around a little bit. It's not, they don't have the physical advantage like they did against Toronto. Columbus can stand up to them. And there were a few hits along the boards that were a little hairy for some of the Bruins players. And Krejci may be out. The indicator after the game was that Krejci is day to day with whatever particular. They didn't reveal what it was.
If that's the case, Gracie's a big player for them.
Right, exactly. That means moving up. That means moving up Charlie Coyle probably to number 2, a number 2 center, and either moving, bringing Backus back in the lineup and moving somebody in the middle. You could play Corrali, you could play, Johansson used to be a center, but I don't think he's a center anymore. Backus is too slow. I mean, if Krejci is out, that's a loss for them.
Yeah. I would imagine Backus would be the guy they would bring back in, but still, I think that's it's a definite loss. And I'll give Columbus credit because although I was, I didn't get to watch much of the game because I was at the Avengers thing, and I got home in time for like the end of the third period of the overtime. I kind of impressed that Columbus was, stayed with them as much as they did, for being so rusty. And then at the same time, I was also, it was really interesting, and the announcers were dead on right that Boston had to score quickly in that overtime, because as that overtime went on, Boston's exhaustion would start to hit them. There was no two ways about that. You could see them starting to make some stupid mistakes. They're having played the 7-game series, that kind of stuff will start to matter as the series goes along, more so than it does now. But last night, thought the overtime, when I saw it going to overtime, I'm like, God, Columbus has a good shot here. They have a really good shot, because Boston was going to be, but Boston ended up scoring just a nice goal. They scored a really solid goal. So the defense of Columbus was, in the time that I was watching, impressed me. Like they were moving the puck really well. And it is, again, interesting. The factor to me that's always interesting is when a team comes from playing another team in a series and then jumps right into a new, so you've just played 7 games against Toronto if you're Boston, and Toronto, for all its ups and downs or whatever, they are what they are, and now you're shifting gears to a totally different kind of team so quickly. It takes some time. It takes time to make that adjustment. Game 1 can be tricky that way.
It does. And one thing that I saw, one of the main reasons that a lot of people pointed to when they talked about Columbus beating Tampa was the ferocious forecheck of the Blue Jackets against the Lightning defense.
Yeah.
You didn't see that a ton yesterday, but you started to see it late in the game. I think it was Grzelcyk or McAvoy. It was one of the, or maybe Krug, was one of the smaller Bruins defensemen that just got freight trained.
Yeah.
By somebody behind the net in the third period. And I think Columbus is going to do more of that.
Yeah, they're going to have to do a lot more of it. And there's a hang. They just weren't all together there. And for anybody who watched I watched almost the entire Tampa series, and they were a different team. They're going to be a different team as this goes along, for sure. And then the St. Louis game later on, again, that was a tough one, because again, it is hard to stay up for both these games, exhausted as we were. But I did manage to stay up for a lot of this one. And it was pretty much what I thought it would be. Like, to me, it was pretty much the back and forth, low scoring game you kind of expect. Tarasenko plays really, really well. Beats the rookie on the game winner, at the outside, and that was an interesting one for sure. But I thought it was a really entertaining game. I think tonight's games, though, and someone just put this in the chat room too, I think tonight's games are going to be more entertaining than those two were, because
I don't know. I don't know about Islanders Carolina being entertaining.
I think it will be.
I think it's going to be like watching paint dry. Because the Islanders play a shutdown game. They
do play a shutdown game for sure. But the Hurricanes are pretty good at coming through a shutdown game. So I think we should get into the previews of this. Let's start with it. Let's start right into it, Mike. With give us your thoughts on this series.
Well, I picked the Islanders in 6. And the reason I did is because, I'm just still not a believer in the Carolina goaltending. I have to give their offense more credit, because I didn't think they were going to be able to score this year, and they were able to fight through that. And Teravainen and Aho has turned into a star. Guys like Warren Fogle step up in the playoffs. And, I think they have enough forward contribution to go along with one of the better defenses in the league. But, as Russ said when we were talking about Game 7 between the Caps and the Canes, Mrazek didn't play that great, and they still won. So,
Yeah.
I mean, how long can you go about that and go with that and survive? Now, the only thing I can say about the Islanders is they are equally. I was equally skeptical about their offense, and I still am. I was surprised they beat the Penguins because I didn't think they'd be able to score enough, but they were able to shut down the Penguins and score enough goals to beat them. So I that's why I think it's going to be a boring series. I think it's going to be a chess match. I mean, it may get physical. I mean, we know that I don't know whether Svechnikov or Ferland are going to be back for game one, but
I was
they
out for game one from what I've heard, which makes sense. I mean, if they were close to coming back, they would have come back for game 7. So
yeah, I mean, may as well be careful if you want them back back at some time during the series. You may as well be careful and make sure that they're 100% or close enough to 100% to play. So, but yeah, I mean, I think the Islanders win the goaltending matchup hands down with Leonard, with Leonard over Mrazek. And the Islanders, Boychuk will, and this will be a key thing. Boychuk is out 3 to 4 weeks. And with there's a lower body injury, and he was slow before that. So, I mean, that would mean him coming back for the Stanley Cup final if they get that far, or probably mid conference final to Stanley Cup final. So that's a big loss, and they really don't have a ton of depth. I mean, you're talking about, are they going to play Dennis Seidenberg? I mean, I don't know.
I mean, probably, and I think that would be a smart move actually, because Seidenberg does have a ton of playoff experience, and he is also, even though, I mean, he's definitely slowed down, he's always shown abilities, I mean, to do great things in series like this. So
I mean, it means more ice time for Pulak and Pelech and Devin Taves.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's and probably a lot more work for Leddy. So I mean, that's going to be. But I think the Islanders, in a sort of a matchup of imperfect teams, will be the more perfect of the two in the 1 and 6.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how Barry Trotz handles the thing about the Hurricanes that we saw is they're a strike fast team, that they do actually have the abilities to put goals together in bunches. And the thing about the Islanders is that they rarely give up goals in bunches. So it will be low scoring. I don't think that means it's going to be boring, though. I think that it's going to be
physical. It could be.
I think it could be physical, and I think that I'm really fascinated by who on the Islanders is going to take over the scoring. Who's going to get the goals, because like last series you saw Jordan Eberle come through with huge goals at big time,
and Bailey, and
that's what you want to see. You want to see that, and I've always been a fan of Eberle's, and I really was kind of upset that Eberle sort of has faded into like oblivion to a degree, and it's great to see him come back and do this. This is really going to be kind of fun, I think, to see him score big goals. And it's interesting in the fact you have two teams that neither of which are really expected to be in the second round of the playoffs facing each other at all. So both fan bases are going to be really fired up about this. And there's no rivalry between these two teams really. I mean, they're in the Metro Division, but you don't think of this is not really a real solid rivalry. When I looked at when they played against each other, it's just, the Islanders have a slight edge over the last 3 years. This year the Islanders won 3 of 4, but all those games were the last one of those games being played on January 8th. Like these teams played each other on October 1st, October 4th. I guess they played each other opening night, October 4th, then October 28th. So they played twice in the first 3 weeks of the season. Carolina has started off really, not well. So the one thing that you'll say though is in the first 3 games, the Islanders held Carolina to 1 goal in all 3 games. That's interesting. Although in the last game on January 8th, which is when Carolina won at 4-3. But the first 3 was a 2-1, 2-1, 4-1 Islanders wins. So
they haven't played in 3 months.
They haven't played in 3 months, and both the Islanders are kind of the same team that they have been, but the Carolina Hurricanes certainly aren't. One of the things that I think is funny, because my son and I always have this thing that we do that's really, and I've done it before on the show. When you take the mascots and go against each other. And this one is the best we've ever had. We decided last night this is the most fun, because the natural enemy of an island is a hurricane. So we were talking about that. We just think that's the funniest thing ever. So we're like, yeah, I mean, if one thing that destroys islands, it's hurricanes. So this is definitely one of the.
You've been watching Lost too much.
No, this is a good one. This to me is my favorite ever matchup of 2 mascots against each other. All right, here we go. The first time ever meeting in the playoffs. It's true. It's in the chat room. It's kind of crazy because you would even think that even going back to the Harvard Whalers, and the Whalers were pretty good, and in the same conference with the Islanders for a long time too. So they could have.
Right. They never. I mean, they were always in the with Adams division or playing Buffalo, Hartford, or Buffalo, Montreal, or Boston. So they would have had to get to the conference final to face the Islanders, and they never did until they.
Although there were some years there where that didn't. Divisions always changed. I mean, how the playoff format was like 1 versus 16 at some point. So it was like completely
true.
Playoff formats back then could have been anything. Like the Devils have. Okay, so as Miron here is saying, the Devils have met the Hurricanes 4 times in the playoffs. So that's like fascinating when you think about it.
That was and most of the time, half the times were against. I think it was the Whalers.
Yeah,
I know there was a Carolina New Jersey series where Kevin Weeks was the goalie that stole the series. The Devils lost to them in 1 year. I remember.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. All right, so then let's jump on forward to
what's your prediction?
Oh, my prediction. I'm going with the Islanders in 5.
Okay.
I think the Islanders are going to continue to roll. I think that Barry Trotz is just doing really well, and I also think that it's going to be tough for the Carolina Hurricanes to top beating. They're going to have a really hard time getting over the beating of the Capitals. That's such a big deal to them. It's such a dramatic
Stanley Cup is what you're saying.
Yeah. That was their Stanley Cup for sure. So here we go. Okay, let's move on. So the nightcap, which is the beaten up and pretty tired San Jose Sharks against the well-rested Colorado Avalanche. This could be, I don't know, maybe the most exciting series left that we have.
It could be. I mean,
as far as talent goes, you've got more star talent probably in this series than you do anywhere else.
I think that these teams play. I mean, San Jose doesn't play as much wide open as Colorado does, but I mean, you could tell by the number of goals that San Jose scored this year and the fact that they were fairly loose on defense and the fact that they have Burns and Carlson on the blue line, that this is going to be a more wide open series. I mean, I think of the 4 series, this is going to be the one that's the most offensive of them all. I think one of the determining factors will be how long it takes for Pavelski to get back in the lineup. He's not going to play in game 1.
Doubtful, I heard.
Yeah, well, doubtful. They said day to day, but that could just be,
doubtful for
it could be fog of war. It could be just them. Well, he's out for the rest of the playoffs, but we're going to say day to day just to use him as a.
Yeah. I get the impression he'll be back in the series from talking to people down there, but we'll see. And I think he could be back as early as game 3, but I don't think it's in the rest of the season thing. But we'll see. It could be.
But I mean, I think that it looks like Colorado is going to continue with Grubauer in goal. He played well against Calgary. Jones was up and down and spotty in the series against Vegas. I mean, he did give up 3 goals against them in game 7, and then the miracle comeback happened.
Yeah.
So I think Jones is going to be I know some people are lauding the Sharks as the favorite now, and I'm like, that's the worst thing to say about the Sharks, because whenever they're the favorite,
that does not work for the Sharks now.
You get the Heimlich ready here. So
they aren't the best team left. I heard Brian Burke say that recently on the show. I do not think the Sharks are the best team that's left right now.
But I do think that they're the better team in this series. I like Colorado. They got scoring and production out of their second and third lines in the first round that I never expected, because they hadn't produced all year. So do I think that's going to happen 2 rounds in a row? The answer is no. So my prediction is San Jose in 6.
I gave Colorado very little chance against Calgary. You guys both picked them. I didn't think that they would be able. And then I'm the stupid mistake that I made is the Colorado Avalanche are incredibly streaky, right? And they were streaky down to the stretch. They were like 9-1 in their last 10 games. Mm-hmm. I should have realized that their streakiness would continue into the playoffs, which it did. My question is, they've had a lot of time off, and what that does to affect, because Colorado is either really good or really bad. This team has been that way for like 3 years now. They have moments when they're just amazing. They have moments when they're just terrible.
Right.
Will the time off affect the streakiness of them? Is going to be the key to me in this, And it's so hard to say. The one thing I'll say is goaltending wise, they definitely have the advantage. I'm not happy with Jones. I wasn't happy with Jones at all in the last series. I think that he made some. I know he made some big saves at some big times, but in the last game, but still he also let up a big goal. I thought that almost blew the whole series. So
I mean, the one advantage for Colorado is they have the best player in the series, and that's McKinnon.
they probably and they probably have the best two players in the series actually.
Well, Rantanen's not too bad, but I mean, they're
I mean, Rantanen to me is
Couture and Burns, and there's a few guys on San Jose who could challenge for the second best, but I think McKinnon's clearly the best.
Yeah, no, I think he's clearly the best too. Now these teams have played this year 3 times, and they played as recently as April 6th, so they did just play. San Jose won all 3 games against Colorado this year. Now Colorado was really bad really off for most of this year. The first game, but they were all relatively high scoring. Like San Jose won 5-4 on January 2nd. San Jose won 4-3 on March 1st, and San Jose won 5-2 on April 6th. So they scored 14 goals in 3 games against Colorado. That's going to be that Colorado has to be able to stop them. Their defense has to be better than that, obviously, to get anywhere. But so you're going to see goals scored and over time here. The Sharks have tended to have Colorado's number. Not just this year, but in general. So, there's things looking up for San Jose. That being said, I'm going with Colorado in this one. So I'm going against the grain here with you on this one. I was just impressed with Colorado, and I was kind of unimpressed. And I really felt like the Sharks. I mean, don't just forget about the penalty. I don't mean about the penalty, quote unquote. I still felt like they stole the series, even if you took the penalty out. I felt like they stole the series to get to Game 7, even because I felt like they were getting big plays at big times from certain players, but they were getting lucky to get them in a way. And it felt like that any time they could have easily been blown out by Vegas in that series. Vegas's speed was real trouble for San Jose, and Colorado is also very fast. So to me, speed is going to be the issue here. I think that's where I see Colorado taking it. Now I'm going to say it's going to be a 7-game series, though. I'm going to say it's 7 games, but I do think that it's Colorado winning in 7.
Okay.
And the NHL did apologize to Vegas for officiating. Is that the actual deal?
I didn't see that, but I wouldn't be
saying in our chat room, the NHL apologized for Vegas for officiating. The refs that botched the calls are suspended for the remainder of the playoffs. I've never heard of refs actually being suspended before, or the NHL ever saying anything like that. So if that's true.
Yeah, but we're talking about that's post New Orleans, LA Rams. I think that leagues now, because fans are losing it so much because of controversial calls, they have to make these referees accountable.
Yeah, you're probably right.
And that one was completely. I mean, we're talking about football here, but that one was blatant. I thought this was bad. I mean, honestly, I thought this was the biggest job in the playoffs since Gilmore Gretzky '93. I really do, because I mean, honestly, I don't know. It's borderline whether he should have even been penalized. It was a shove with a stick on the chest. It wasn't like he cross-checked him in the chops, and then he fell because Paul Stastny came through and pushed him. It was a comedy of errors, and the worst thing about it was they scrummed for a minute and then decided to call that.
Yeah. No, I do agree. And then people who were there, I talked to some people who were there, and they said, it was really like that they kind of agree with you. There was no call being made.
There's nothing to do about it now other than, and the thing is, those referees may have been out of the rotation anyway. They may have not chosen them for the second round, but them saying this provides the league cover for an obviously embarrassing event.
Right. That's true. So, before we get on to, I want to talk Kadri for a second too.
Sure.
But I want to, and because I've been calling around working on my rumor chart and getting a lot of people are asking me what I'm hearing, because the typical thing with me is when I talk to somebody that they'll only give me information because they think I might be talking to somebody else. So I say, and one of the questions I keep getting is, what are you hearing on Nazem Kadri? Who's out there interested in Nazem Kadri? Mm-hmm. And it does feel like Toronto is going to move him, and it's just a matter of when. But I want to get to that topic in 1 second, because first I was texted something just a few minutes ago that is pretty incredible, and that is the Russian team roster for the for the World Championships they're coming up. And I know we don't put a whole lot of stock in the World Championships. I know it's kind of like the afterthought.
So let me guess: Ovechkin, Kuznetsov, Orlov. All those guys are going.
Malkin, Kovalchuk, obviously.
Kucherov.
Yep, it's
Vasilevsky.
Orlov. It is crazy. I mean,
Nikita Zaitsev probably because
this team, if they don't win this thing, it would just be absurd. I mean, and it'll be interesting for for example, we were talking about how Carter Hart looks like he might be the goalie for Team Canada.
That might not be a good idea.
Just watching Carter Hart against that Russian team or whatever, it's just like that Russian team is just crazy. I don't know. It's going to be. It's always kind of fun when the world. I actually like the World Championships. It's a fascinating thing to.
Spring in Slovakia. That's what it is.
Yeah, and I think there'll be a lot of hype around this year because there's so many teams that with big fan bases that are out who will have players there.
Well, Crosby's not going.
Yeah, he's not going, huh?
Crosby's not going. Marner's not going for Toronto because he's got a contract situation. Austin Matthews was. He said he had gotten contacted, but he wasn't sure. I didn't hear whether Tavares had or not, but it was a long season. I mean, I don't know. I mean, that team, the Russian team. I mean, yes. I mean, it's a hop, skip, and a jump from home. They're all going home for the summer, so it makes a lot of sense. And any chance to play internationally for Russia, that they'll jump at that chance.
Yeah. So we'll talk about Kadri, but so when I was talking to people about Kadri, there was a lot of mixed signals on him. Like one GM saying, yeah, of course we take him in a heartbeat. We play against him all the time. It's really tough. We can't stand playing against them. We'd love to have him on our team. Some people thinking that this will be the wake up call that he needs, and that a trade will be a further wake up call for that.
Right.
And that's very possible too. He's obviously a second line center in a lot of teams in the NHL. He's not a second line center in Toronto, of course.
But he's a second line center, and this can't be diminished. He's a second line center playing third line center and making almost third line center money. He's making $4.5 million.
His contract is ridiculously cheap, and there is definitely a rise in the value of players with sandpaper right now. Like that's the one thing I kept hearing. Like Tom Wilson, the Tom Wilson impact, I'll call it, can't be diminished. It really is something that people have taken note of. That the more the NHL gets away from, basically, I think it's this. I think it's faster players in general are not tough players. They because they're so fast they don't get used to. They don't ever have a need to be a checker. They're fast, speedy players. The NHL's emphasis on speed has left a gaping hole for tough players. And so what happens here is that when you get a tough player who actually has some speed who can play, he's incredibly valuable. And that's Tom Wilson, Kadri, players like that. And
let's just say Tom Wilson is at a different level. I mean, Kadri is not a I'll drop you with a check at center ice type of guy. I mean,
he's not like Wilson. I mean, Wilson can run roughshod over a lot of teams right now because no one has a player like him. We used to be everybody had somebody like him.
Right.
But no one has it. And you're right. Kadri is very different. Kadri is more of like a mixture of like a Sean Avery and Tom Wilson, but somewhere in there, like a smaller guy who's got lots of skill, but and also just
has an impulse control problem. I mean, and that's
doesn't have a good
that was the general gist of the questioning yesterday in Toronto was that you said basically you said that. You would sort of like keep yourself in check after last year's suspension, and now you did something boneheaded again. What do you say now? And he had no excuse. Which he basically says, "Well, I'm gonna try to remedy this over the summer." He didn't say what he was gonna do, but it sounded like it was something off the ice. So maybe sports psychiatrist or something like that. Just to improve because I mean, essentially, he saw the red mist when Patrick Marleau was hit, and then he lost control. And Dubas said yesterday, well, we need him. We need him there. And like he was suspended 3 games last year, 5 games this year. One more, 3 strikes, you're out. You're probably going to get the Rafi Torres treatment where you get 20 or 30 games. And it's like they need him.
Mhm.
He's one of the few players who does play with sandpaper.
Yeah.
So, and the organizational depth up the middle is weak. So I think there would be a number of suitors there, but I think that would be a consideration here if teams are trying to trade for Kadri looking for a bargain. The Leafs aren't going to trade him for a bargain. They're not going to trade him because they want to get rid of him. They would trade him if they could get value back where they need it, which is on the blue line. And I don't know whether teams would give up the type of defenseman that they're looking for. Like if it was Philadelphia and Philadelphia was looking for a number 2 center, like we think that they are during the summer.
Yeah.
I think the ask from Toronto would be Gostisbehere or Sanheim.
Yeah. And I think a deal like that could happen. That does seem like a Flyers type of move. But what's really interesting is I've heard the Flyers and Toronto. I mean, those two teams have always talked. They have a good, pretty open line of communication. There's no question about it. They've made trades in the past, and they still communicate a lot together.
Right.
For what Shanahan does not change that. Dubas doesn't change that. There's no question that they communicate a lot. I think that you're gonna. I would put the odds pretty high at a Toronto Philly trade at some point this summer. It may be Kadri. The other thing that's really interesting, and this is something that was brought up, and it was brought up in our chat room, and I also heard it myself, is that when Darren Dreger talking about the Leafs being open to trading Mitch Marner. Now, the craziness of that.
Yeah, I heard that, and it was
feels like clickbait, right? Like that's what it feels like.
Well, and it's the funny thing is that because and Drager even admitted it this morning, sort of jokingly. He's like, how much money am I getting from Mitch Marner's dad? And he was just joking because he's always been the one to pump the tires of Marner as a superstar player. Yeah. And I had even an exchange with Drager on Twitter this morning because I had responded to somebody, Adam Wild, who's a co-host of the Steve Dangles podcast, about hearing Marner at the media availability yesterday, and he's like, "I want to be in Toronto long term. I want to stay here. This is where this is where I want to be."
Right.
And Dubas said it's priority number 1 for him. That's the thing. If it's priority number 1, and they're not going to lowball him, which I don't think they're going to, then a deal will get done. But the problem is that if they pay him, and Drager pointed this out, if they pay him what he's going to get on the market or close to it, he's going to get probably $10 million or a little more than that, which is close to what Patrick Kane is making, and that would be the top paid winger in the NHL.
Right.
Okay? If you have 3 $10+ million players in Tavares, Matthews, and Marner, then somebody's got to go, and it can't be Connor Brown at $2.1 million.
Right? No, it can't be. And honestly, they need to hold on to Connor Brown at all costs.
Maybe not. I mean, he's a Babcock favorite, but what I'm saying is there's no savings there. If you trade Connor Brown, who's making $2 million, you're replacing him with a guy on an entry level contract making $925 or $800 or something. So you're only saving $1 million. That's not where you need to save. Where you need to save is a guy that's making $7 million, which is Nylander.
Yeah. Which is Nylander, but who is the hardest person for them to trade right now?
I don't think so. I really don't think so, because I think everybody buys into the fact that the 2 months that he was held out, or the 2 months that there was the impasse, affected him. Teams will be looking for a bargain. They're not going to get a bargain because teams are desperate and dying for offense.
Now I'm going to throw a trade proposal to you, and this is just something that, just for fun for Mitch Marner.
Sure.
Something that I heard being thrown around today when I was talking to people. And there's a lot of concern in Philadelphia that Provorov will not be able to be re-signed. That they're going to have a deal hold out with Provorov, that he wants a lot of money, that he wants big money, and he is, obviously a big time prospect, big time player. He's a good, really solid number 1 defenseman.
Right.
As good as probably anyone out there that as good that you're going to grab. If you're going to add to your defense, you're not going to add much better than Provorov.
Right.
So. The thought of like a Provorov plus a Konechny for Mitch Marner was what was thrown out there, and what that would mean for both teams, or would that be something that Toronto, in your mind, would consider?
I don't think they would bat an eye at it. They would say no, thank you. I honestly, I don't perceive of anything shorter.
But in saying that, okay, I think you're probably right. But in saying that, isn't that a little bit odd, short-sightedness? I mean, taking like Marner's a great player, no questions asked. But how great a player is he to say
Well,
that we wouldn't consider,
I mean,
probably like a potential, like, Norris winning defenseman.
ask John Tavares, because I mean, I think Marner was primarily responsible for Tavares getting close to 50 goals. I mean, he is a playmaker, a top playmaker as a winger that most centers are. Passing wise, his on ice vision is unbelievable, and defensively, he's not the fastest player in the world. He's not the biggest player in the world. He's not the, but he's got an innate sense that, I think that translates well to the new style of game. And, no, I mean, it would be, and general managers and management types and ownership, they factor these things in, but sometimes they push them to the side. But in Toronto, you have to factor this in. It would be a PR disaster to trade Mitch Marner. It really would. You've got the core group of Tavares and Matthews, and Marner is the other Toronto area kid. They would just not do it. They would trade Nylander, and fans would celebrate.
Well, no, but of course, I mean, you're not going to. I mean, this has always been Toronto's issue, right? You're not going to.
Well, there's a reason why you don't do
to win popularity contests. Like, you can't win a popularity. First of all, of course they want to trade Nylander, but no one wants Nylander, so that's the issue. Like right now,
see, I don't buy that premise. I don't think that nobody wants.
Why would you want Nylander based on what you've seen?
Well, based on what he did in his first 2 years, he scored 60 points.
No, I know he did. I know, but what you saw this year, until he gets back in there and shows he can do that again.
Well, I mean, no. See, but that's the point. The number number of teams that you reported, that everybody reported.
Yeah, no, there were teams that were interested in, but that was before he had a bad year.
And they will still be interested, especially after the Leafs have paid $17 million of the contract after July 1st. He's got I think it's an $8.3 million bonus. It's something.
Yeah, no, that is a factor, no question. For some teams, that's a big factor.
Right.
Maybe. I think that's just funny because the Flyers fans in our chat room are freaking out about the Osprey. They're saying Fletcher should be fired in a second if he traded Provorov and Konechny for Mitch Marner. That's why I always think these things are kind of fascinating, because
first of all, I don't think the Leafs had a chance to draft Konechny a few years ago, and I like Konechny as a player, but I don't think they would be interested in Konechny. I honestly think if you were talking a deal like that, it would probably be something like Konechny, Morgan Frost, and probably a first-round pick. It would be something like that. But I'm just.
Provorov is the key of the deal. So
Provorov would be the key of the deal. But the thing is, Kyle Dubas, he's got two guys in Liljegren and Sandin who probably will be in the NHL within 2 years. His task is to stem the tide for those 2 years, to fill that Leafs defense with enough quality to be able to contend until those guys are up in the NHL and playing at a level that they think they can. You don't give up your second or third best player up front to get that type of player. You might give up your fourth or your fifth, and they have loads of talent up front, but they're not going to trade their cornerstones. Dubas is a guy who is centered on building around the core. And at a certain point, like when you have three guys making over $30 million and you have an $83 to $85 million cap, the guys that go are the middle class, and Nylander and maybe Kadri at $4.5 million and Nylander at 6.9 on a front-loaded deal. That's the middle class. Though, I was standing 2 feet away from Patrick Marleau yesterday, who said he's not retiring. So, I mean, now the one thing that he did say at the end of it was that if they asked him to waive his no move clause, he would, he was like, it was basically a non-answer, but it was essentially, well, I'd consider it. It depend on the situation, which means if you trade me back to San Jose or someplace I'd like, okay, but I'm not holding my breath that they're going to be able to trade Patrick Marleau. So they're going to have to move somebody that's going to be painful. And that's why I continue to go back to Nylander. It makes more sense to move him because you have replacements in the organization like Janssen and Kapanen and the minors, Jeremy Bracco, and you don't have a.
Like, I mean, it makes more sense, Mike, of course, but again, it's like it makes more sense, but you're not. I get so if you're just willing to, okay, you're just gonna wait. Because if you're willing to give Nylander and you're not gonna get a whole lot better from it, people are gonna take him for draft picks and something. You're not gonna get that. You're not gonna get that top 4 defenseman for him.
Well, then you're not trading him. I mean, if you're trading Nylander and a deal for Brett Pesce is out there, then I'm doing it because that's the type of defenseman that they need, and there are other defensemen out there that could fit the same role. If there was a deal where I could get Jacob Trouba signed on a long-term deal, I mean, I'd spend $7 million on Jacob Trouba because that's where you need to spend the money on. But I'm not spending $7 million on William Nylander when I'm paying $30 million for Marner, Matthews, and Tavares. It's allocation of funds.
No, they can't. They can't. You're absolutely right. They can't keep Nylander. The question is, and they can't keep all of them. Put it that way.
Right.
I mean, they have to move somebody. They have to move one of the $7 or $6 million or more per year players, right? And that there's only a few of them. That's so. You kind of write off Travis Konechny pretty quickly there because I know Konechny might have been turned down by them in the draft, but now he's a 25 goal guy. He's really
I think he's a fine player. I'm just saying that I think because he is going to have to be paid as soon as next year, I believe that if they're going to trade a guy who's expensive like a Nylander or in your situation a Marner, you have to get players back on ELCs because they need the space.
Or you have to take say you're willing to spend $10 million for Marner. Right, and that's probably what they are willing to spend.
Right.
So then they're going to at least $10 million, probably maybe even 11. All right. So you're putting that's the money you've had set aside for Marner.
And how much is Provorov going to cost?
Provorov is going to be, let's say he's
6 or 7.
7. Let's say he's 7. And then you go and say Konechny is going to be 5, maybe.
Right. It's not a win.
But you have 2 players there, and a defenseman for the price of one. Like that, you have one of them's a top 2 defenseman, and one of them's a solid top 6 forward. So you have 2 that you're getting there for the price of one.
Whereas if you traded Nylander in a deal for, and I'm just using Pesce as an example, I'm not saying this is going to happen. If you traded Nylander for Pesce, Nylander's making 6.9 and Pesce's making 4.025.
Yeah, so but then you just have I get that, and that makes sense. Pesce's, but I don't think Carolina would do that first off. But even if they did, let's assume they did for a second do that. If Carolina would make that trade, you're really not. You're improving your one spot on defense. You're not improving like the Konechny also brings. There's more to Konechny than just scoring. He brings actually like the sandpaper again that you need.
I know. I'm just telling.
He actually, you would rather have him than Nylander in your lineup.
Well, yes, but we're not talking about trading Konechny.
We're not talking about Konechny for Nylander, obviously, but
Konechny for Marner in a deal for Marner, and that's why I'm saying, there's nothing wrong with Travis Konechny. I like him as a player. I'm just saying that first of all, I don't see the Leafs ever trading Marner. I see them if Darren Ferris's agent decides to go down the road of an offer sheet, the Leafs will match it and deal with the consequences after. Yeah. But I think if the Leafs are going into the negotiation with Marner saying we're willing to make you the highest or second highest paid winger in the NHL, then I think that prevents the agent from going down the offer sheet road because why? Right. The Leafs are treating them with respect. They're saying we want to make you the highest paid this or one of the highest paid that. So yeah. I don't, unless there is a dramatic fallout between the agent and the Leafs, I don't see, not that I don't see it being a problem. They're going to have to spend, but they're willing to spend because like they did on Matthews, because they know that.
Is it smart to spend? Is it just forgetting the fact that he's your player and everybody wants to keep him there? Matthews wants to keep him there. Is it really smart to do, is it really smart to have Marner over having Provorov and Konechny for the same, like roughly the same amount of money? Like if you're allocating your salary cap,
yes, because like I said, I think you can trade or move other players, other than those 3, Tavares, Marner, Matthews. There is value in other players where you can get the help on defense. Maybe not as good as Provorov,
Right.
But Provorov is going to cost. I mean,
Right.
that's why I'm saying the cost of a
You're
pet.
gonna have to spend. You're gonna have. They're gonna need to get a top tier defenseman somehow.
Right. Yes, I agree.
This is the way of doing it.
Right, and the thing is, and I'll argue, guys like Kapanen who are just coming off their ELCs, or Janssen who scored 20 goals as a rookie, or Nylander who provides cost certainty with 5 years left, and the first deal is basically a free year. Because here's the bonus. So if you make the deal after July the 1st, it's like you're getting him for free next year.
Right.
Those are attractive, and goal scoring, as we've seen, is a premium in this league, almost as much as defense. So I think if Dubas is of the mind, and there's questions whether he is, I mean, he didn't make any, he basically, we know that he likes Nylander. We know that they like what he brings, but you can get value for him, even though he scored 7 goals in 57 games last year.
You might, and there will be teams, and like you said, the contract, the fact that the money is going to be good, and all that stuff. A
team like Anaheim, who is desperate for speed up front, there is a team that is a good match for Nylander if there's a trade.
Yeah. I mean, that could be. That really could be. I just I think that the issue here that I have is like this is Toronto and other teams. Like, I'm not just saying Toronto, but teams tend to like value their own players a little bit more than they should sometimes.
Sure,
and they don't look at which is the case. Like, and what makes this an interesting trade? Okay, is the people in the chat room. I've got a couple texts from people watching and stuff like that. Everybody hates this trade. That's always interesting to me when everybody hates a trade.
Yeah, and see, the thing is like I heard a couple commentators over the last few days talk about the free agent class and the RFAs in the summer, and how this is offer sheets and this and that, and how they're going to blow the doors off the salary cap. I mean, yes and no. The problem is that there's just so much money that these teams can spend. And
it's reality, and it's funny. People don't realize like the amount of trouble that the Vegas Golden Knights are already in salary cap wise. It's insane. Like, the Vegas Golden Knights are going to have to do some crazy things to get their players signed next year. I mean, they have, and it's amazing because this is how quickly you would think. How quickly can a team like that, like a brand new team, get into cap hell? But they're in cap hell right now. I mean, they added $21 million and a first line to their team from last year, and that's like, when you think about it, that's just a ton. It's a ton.
And the cap will go up probably to $83 to $85 million. Yeah, teams are already spending that cap space.
Yeah, they're already doing that, and then we have another expansion coming. So there's a whole lot that could help out a little bit. But some people could end up putting some of their more expensive players and hoping that Seattle bites on a couple of them.
And a new CBA could mean another compliance buyout. You never know that. I mean, if teams have put them,
really surprising.
It would be, but there's going to be a new definition of, there might be a change in escrow and things of that nature. And if there's going to be a change in that, then the NHL might say, okay, well, we have to clear out some of these contracts because now with this new whatever this new calculation is, we're going to have to reset things. Who knows? You never.
Yeah, that would be interesting. And I'm not. A lot of people think that we're not going to have any issues with the next CBA. I'm not buying that. Just from talking to some people, and I don't believe it's the last thing in the world I want to say, but I'm not buying that there's going to be smooth sailing through the next CBA. It feels like, it's funny how it works. It's like, oh yeah, things are going great, and then you'll hear like somebody on the player side say, yeah, but we know we really should get this, and then somebody on the owner side, yeah, it's going great, but why don't we just push for this, because we got to try to push for something, and then that's all it takes is someone overextending or going a little bit too far, and then we're gonna have all kinds of things. I mean, this is going to be.
I'll be covering Marley's games then.
Yeah, this is going to be an incredible summer, for sure. As far as player movement goes, it's just. I mean, just doing the rumor chart right now. I tried to get up by this morning. Trying to get up now by tonight. It is. There are so many issues and so many different players in different spots. Like the Kadri thing I put up there. Teams that would be interested in Kadri. I was told that Toronto definitely wants to. If they move him, they're going to move him to the Western Conference. That they will not move him in the Eastern Conference.
I agree with that.
So that limits it a little bit, but but Anaheim's a team that's interested in. Calgary I think is the one that if I was to pick one team, and I've said this before, I've actually written before that Calgary should trade for Nazem Kadri because just because of the whole Connor McDavid thing, and looking forward, Edmonton's not going to suck forever. And there's going to be a point at which Calgary is getting better and better. There's going to be a point at which those two teams are going to be battling it out constantly again at the top of that division. And when that happens, it'd be really good for them to have Kadri.
I can see two names, and we're just spitballing here, so this is not a rumor. I could see two names being attached to Kadri and Calgary trade. One would be Sam Bennett, and the other one would be TJ Brody.
Yeah. Brody, I think, would be a good bet on that one, and I think it's a trade that Calgary would seriously consider for a lot of reasons, not just the Connor McDavid reason, but just for the Calgary wants to be that kind of a team in the West. You can tell, like that's where they want to go. They want to be one of the more physical teams out west, and I think that Kadri would make them that, and he would be probably good. I mean, Vancouver's also going to be interested. I've heard, so they'll be interested in that as well. So,
one final thing. The one thing that's interesting is since all these big teams out, I think Burke made this point. Since all these big teams went out early, that's going to make their general manager. That's going to give their general managers more time to sort of be more inventive. To maybe like we know we have to shake things up here, so let's make some hockey trades during the summer when there are no limitations to doing that because the cap is not a
right. This is the time to do it, and that's why you'll see a lot, and you'll also see also when a team goes down like surprisingly like they do, teams feel like that they have more freedom because the fans will accept it, like they'll accept a harder deal when your team has struggled through something.
And the other thing I heard, which was sort of counterintuitive, but it actually makes sense, everybody was lauding Kekalainen and rubbing their hands with glee at the fact that they went all in and they made the playoffs, and that now teams are going to you're going to promote more teams going all in at the deadline. It's going to make more trades happen at the deadline. You're going to be more willing to take risks. Well, the problem is that teams that are close in playoff races may not want to.
No, Colorado. No, that's not. Yeah, I agree with you. That's not going to happen. I mean, Columbus was a very specific set of circumstances. I mean, and including not the smallest being the fact that their best player and their goalie were going to be leaving them. And the fact that to me is the biggest issue that they had there. They knowing Panarin and Bobrovsky are gone changes things a lot, Now, the interesting thing here is what if Columbus continues to do really well and goes like a Stanley Cup? Does that change things for Bobrovsky or Panarin? No. I've heard that brought up too. I don't think it does at all. I think that they'll just basically go on the fact that it was a great run.
It might change things for some other guys like Dzingel or Duchesne, other guys that they traded for. But
I think Duchesne is really where they should focus their energies the most, like to see if they can keep Duchesne somehow. And I think that
they're going to have a ton of cap space. So
I think they might be able to keep Duchesne. Duchesne might actually like it there, And when they traded him, I talked to somebody there, and they said, part of the reason you trade for Matt Duchesne is just so we can see what it's like here, And after. Because if we just try to go after him July 1st, we're at a serious disadvantage because we're Columbus. But if he plays here for a couple of months, has a good time, enjoys the area, enjoys the fans, you have a better shot. So
get him season tickets to Buckeyes.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a pretty good fit for Matt Duchesne there. It's kind of surprising, but it's been a good fit. And he's done really well. We'll have to see more out of him than we saw last night, though. Hopefully, we'll see more. All right, gotta go. Enjoy the games tonight, kids. Going to be so much fun. For sure, as the Hurricanes and the Islanders, Sharks, and Avalanche, you can't beat that. It's like natural weather phenomena, and going up against animals and Long Island people. All right, talk to you later. See you soon. Remember that the buzz is just hockey. Have a great weekend.